How's it going? I'm Visionary. This is Visionary Decks, and today we're going to be taking a look at day 6 of card reveals for the brand new LOR expansion, Fates Voyage. Alright, to start us off, we have a brand new vocab, not a keyword, so just something like recall or empowered, just a word that's going to be on card text. Titanic. I wonder where this is leading. Units with 8+ attack or health. Alright, so that's extremely simple. It looks like one of the cards here says, if you behold a Titanic, so we're just getting this keyword to sort of let cards say, like, if you have Titanic, do X, or if I'm Titanic, do X. Probably the main way this is going to be used. But it is interesting to know, like, whatever cards we're getting with this are going to synergize with so many cards that are already in the game, like Nautilus, like She Who Wanders, like basically any ramp unit. So it'll be really interesting to see what today's cards are. I hope we get some cool cards that let us build some fun meme combos with Titanic, but let's start off with the first card. All right, we're starting off with a 3-drop 2/3 from Freljord. This one's called Valhir's Prophet. When I'm summoned, summon a Sigil of the Storm. And Sigil of the Storm does appear to be a token landmark. You cannot main deck this. This is just a card you can get from this card, maybe a couple other cards. We'll see. Sigils of the Storm stack. Okay, so this might be like Volibear's main thing then. Titanic allies cost 1 less. Destroy me when you play a Titanic ally. Okay, I mean, that's pretty crazy, just with the cards we already know we have in the game. Because there are some cards that are, like, relatively cheap that have 8 power. The Noxus Challenger, for example, you could play that for -1 mana. You could also apparently discount the cost of something that just has, like, really high HP. I can't necessarily think of anything that has 8 HP. Mirror Mage is close, but only 7 HP. But I guess if you landed a chime on something, like, if you chimed something up enough, this would just discount it, which is kind of cool. Synergy, I guess maybe Bard, Freljord could have some interesting synergy here where you just like discount your giant units and then you play a giant unit just stacked with chimes for like 3 less mana because you've stacked up these landmarks. It could be kind of cool way to play. But this is very interesting. So this is a pretty broad application. Like any sort of hand buff, like chimes, like the new Targon buffs we have, like Ionia hand buffs, which are kind of archaic, but those would still do the job, would all let you sort of like cheat out units quicker with Sigil of the Storm. So it's kind of interesting. There are definitely some meme combos we could build with this. It'll take a little bit of thinking, but I'm sure we can figure out something funny. But this is cool. So I wonder how many different cards are going to create this. It'll be really interesting if Volibear does create this himself, because I'd assume the whole point of these is you're trying to get Volibear out quicker. Volibear himself is going to be probably gigantic. So I'm sure he will be a Titan. We'll have to see just how many different cards there are that do summon this landmark, because if it stacks, I'm sure there's going to be other types of cards you can play that make it. But just on like a first cursory introduction to this card, I would say it's B tier. Freljord already has so many ramp cards. It's not like... It doesn't seem like this is going to be the best ramp card to play. Like, why not just on turn 3 play Catalyst, play the new 5-mana slow spell? There's so many different ways to ramp. I don't know that this is the best way to ramp that Freljord has, but we'll drop in B tier for now, because I feel like it has some promise just because Sigil can stack. That might make it worthwhile to play this card in a ramp deck. So I'm gonna say B tier. All right, moving on to a 6-mana 5/5 from Freljord, Berserker Ursine. When you play a spell or skill, summon an Sigil of the Storm. Okay, I'm not sure why it says "and," because that is incorrect grammar, but this is pretty crazy. But this is not at all what I thought this card was going to do. This looks like the kind of card that would have like Overwhelm and would just like rush your Nexus down. But he's basically just a giant Puffcap Peddler. Okay, so when you play a spell or skill, there's not a lot of cards in the game that have that. I think the only other card that has that game is Mana Soul Student. That is not a Puffcap Peddler ability. That is not a Mischievous Mirai ability. Both of those cards only work when you play a spell. So the fact that this also works with skills, very interesting. I'm going to assume that's to try and create a little bit of synergy with the new bird that we just got, as well as maybe Talia. Talia duplicating ways. Talia duplicating the Sigil landmark is very interesting, because they stack, right? So if you duplicate it, it should just create an exact copy, and then they both combine, and you've just doubled your sigil. That's interesting. That's food for thought right there. That is interesting. And the fact that Talia, when she is leveled up, creates what, like 3, I don't know how many skills she creates, 3 or 4 on the stack. And then it's just a casual another 3 sigils with this guy. This guy definitely seems a little expensive. If he was like 3 mana, 4 mana, even 5 mana, he would be very, very comparable to Puffcat Peddler. But because he's 6 mana, it's making me wonder how expensive Volibear is going to be. Like, do you really need to play this guy? I thought Volibear was maybe going to be like an 8-drop. He's got to be a 10-drop at least if they're giving this guy to us. Because if we could play this guy and we were 2 turns away from Volibear, this ability would basically be useless, right? There would be no point. But if we're going to need like this many sigils just to get Volibear out, makes me wonder, is it going to be like 15 cost? 20 cost? Is it just going to be like gigantic? And so we have to discount him if we want to play him at all. I do think that would be a kind of cool way to build him, similar to the Watcher, where it's just a card that you cannot afford unless you do play discounts. I mean, this unit itself is not Titanic, so unless you were able to hand buff this, get its HP or its attack up by +3, which is kind of difficult to do, especially considering they just nerfed the Targon, I think like Divine Flame or whatever it was, where you buff 2 units in your hand. You used to be able to buff one of them by +3/+3. So I actually like maybe buffing this guy, getting him on board earlier because he then becomes a Titan himself. And then once he's on board, he'll just help you get the next Titan on board like 5 times faster. There might have been some strategy there with a hand buff, but I feel like you're just going to have to wait it out. Old-fashioned ramp style. You're just going to have to ramp up until you have 6 mana gems, which is not even that hard to do in Freljord. It's really not that hard to do. I guess you'd maybe be playing this guy like turn 4, turn 5 in an average ramp game, which is not the worst. It really is just hard to judge him without seeing Volibear. I think on his own, as is right now, he seems like A tier. He definitely seems like A tier. Just having this ability be uncapped is very huge because he has a permanent board ability even after you summon your first big unit, right? Let's say you play this guy, opponent doesn't remove him, you stack up a bunch of Sigils of the Storm, and then you drop your Volibear. Volibear gets like Vengeance. You still have this guy on board. So at least like you can still try and rebuild and like get the next big unit out, get the next copy of Volibear out of your hand. Like as expensive as he is, again, Freljord is the ramp region. So this guy's not even really that expensive, all things considered. And he just like exponentially helps you ramp even faster. And the fact that he does work with skills, pretty interesting. I wonder if you ever play this guy with like Jhin. Jhin being in hand and just like casually throwing out a free -1 discount on your giant unit is pretty nice, I have to say. I wonder like if you're going Freljord Jhin, what does that look like? I guess like the slow speed ramp spell will help Jhin activate. Avalanche will help Jhin activate. The bird will help Jhin activate, but I feel like you don't have a ton of ways to activate Jhin in a ramp deck. It's definitely interesting. We'll have to see how this card plays out. It seems very strong, but it does seem tough for any deck that is not playing ramp to justify. So if you're playing this card, it instantly adds like 2 or 3 other cards you have to be playing in any deck, which for a card to be that dependent on something is just not great. We'll have to see how he does. I'm gonna say A tier. He was looking like an S tier for a second, but I think he's just a humble A tier. All right, moving on to a 7 mana 8/6 from Freljord, Rhond, the Magma Serpent. Play, summon 3 Sigils of the Storm. That is so disappointing. I thought this was going to be like an epic game-ending card with an overwhelm and a cool ability and like does something special. It's just a glorified ramp spell. It's just a glorified ramp spell. Okay, I mean, 3 Sigils is pretty good. If this is in the game, you probably would rather just play this than play the other guy that we just looked at, the 6 cost. This is just disappointing, man. I thought this was going to be a cool card. It doesn't even make sense. It's a It's like a fire snake. It's a lava snake. What does it have to do with the storm? I mean, it's an 8/6, so it automatically gets discounted by Sigil. So most games, this is going to be a 6 cost. So I do feel like you'd probably rather just play this than play Berserker Ursine. Like, they shouldn't have printed this guy. Now that they printed this guy, Berserker Ursine is, like, unplayable. Berserker Ursine is only playable in meme decks, which, I don't know, maybe that's a good thing. Like, the only possible reason you would ever want to play Berserker is if you're, like, trying to go infinite, or you need, like, enough discount to play like 7 different cards in one game. You know, like you want to make sure you're just continually pumping out value. But as far as just like I'm ramping to 1 Volibear and then I win the game, this is just the better card, is it not? Like as long as you play the 3-drop, this will be 6 cost, and then you just play this, and then you have 3 Sigils of the Storm. Like that's pretty good. That's probably about the same amount you would get from the other guy after a few turns. I mean, this is definitely better than Berserker Ursine. I guess I would have to, now that this is in the game, I'm dropping Berserker Ursine down to like C tier. I'm sorry, buddy. I thought he was going to be a good card. I thought he was going to be a good card, but in the context of this existing, they basically just printed a better version of him. For one more, like why print both of these cards simultaneously and make them basically do the same thing? I don't know. I mean, maybe we are just going to need a copious amount of discounts for Volibear to get on the board. Maybe you really do need both Berserker Ursine and this guy. I kind of doubt that. I have a feeling you'll probably just choose between the two most of the time, and this seems like the better option. Like this is play, instantly get 3 sigils. The other guy is play, get 0 sigils, and then you have to do a bunch of work, jump through a bunch of hoops just to start getting sigils. There's definitely more potential with Berserker Ursine, but this just seems like the better option. It's just like, it's not the cooler option, but it's just the better option, unfortunately. Man, I thought this was going to be a cool card. I'm so disappointed by that one, man. Moving on to 8 mana Targon card. I swear if this just summons Sigils of the Storm, I'm going to lose it. It's a bird. Herald of Celestial Convergence. It's a big bird. 8 mana, 5/8. Play. Activate other allies' Daybreak and Nightfall effects. And this does, so on Daybreak, it gets Overwhelm. On Nightfall, it gets Spell Shield. But you can't get both. So you have to choose. I have no clue why you would ever want to choose Spell Shield instead of Overwhelm, unless you already, I guess, have ways to grant Overwhelm in your deck. It's not even like this has good stats. I'm trying to think, like, why would you want to play this? This is good in a Leona deck. This is good as, like, a Leona finisher. This is basically what the Leona champion spell used to do, the one that just, like, activated all your Daybreak effects, except this does Daybreak and Nightfall now. So I guess you could play, like, Leona Diana, and this activates multiple effects. I guess that could be kind of cool. You can use this to activate Winding Light again, which is pretty hype. If you play that, I wonder if you do then opt in to give this Spell Shield, because Winding Light will give this bird Overwhelm. I guess actually that is the way it would work, isn't it? So that's probably why this is designed this way, because if you have Winding Light on board, then you're incentivized to play this as Nightfall instead. Give it Spell Shield, because it's already about to get Overwhelmed this turn. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Winding Light into this is actually a very good curve. But this is a good example of, like, this is a pretty weak statted unit. 5/8. It's okay. It's fine. For an 8-drop, it's not that great. But it still counts as a Titan, just because its HP is big enough that it fits the requirement. I mean, this is absolutely scary in a Leona deck. Other than that, I don't see this being a good card in, like, any way at all. I would drop this one in C tier, probably. It's not the greatest. It's definitely not the greatest. I don't think I'm going to be playing it a whole lot. Let me know if you think of any cool combos with it down in the comments below. There's just, like, there's no exciting Daybreak or Nightfall effects that are, like, crazy. It's just like, oh, I play this, I stun all of the opponent's units. Wow. Not my favorite card, that's for sure. All right, moving on to the final card of today's reveals, Seismic Shard, a 7-mana elemental Targon spell. I don't know how many elemental spells Targon already has at the moment. This is probably one of the very few it has. I think, like, Malphite's package, which is mainly just skills, is the only set of cards that really is elemental in Targon, so this is good. If you behold a Titanic unit, I cost 3 less, so Malphite would count. You could play this in a Malphite deck. It would be 4 mana, deal 7 to a unit. Wow. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Wait, what? Deal 7? And it's just if you behold a Titanic unit. That's not hard to do at all. Like, you just build your deck correctly where you always have an 8-drop in hand, and then it costs 3 less. Wait, that's crazy. That's crazy. 99% of games, if you're playing this card, this will just be 4 mana, deal 7. Dude, no. It's gonna be a hard expansion to be a memer, man. I thought this was going to be the expansion of memes. I thought this was going to be the expansion where we run wild. We run free. Not only do we have 3 mana deal 5 in PNZ, we now have 4 mana deal 7 in Targon for some reason. It's not even like Targon is like a removal region. There is, I mean, there's no question about it. This card is S tier. This card is absolutely S tier. I'll move Howling Gale. I'll move Howling Gale back down to S tier. I was joking around. I was joshing around putting in Chime Slime tier, but we'll move it back down to S tier. I mean, honestly, man, I feel like it is going to be a tough expansion to be a memer. It's definitely cool to see them adding strong new cards, but 4 mana deal 7. That's crazy, dude. I do wonder if Seismic Shard makes Senna Targon a playable deck, because Senna Targon has already been kind of fringe playable with cards like Falling Star, Sunburst. Just being able to turn those to fast speed is so strong because you can use them like during your opponent's attack. Now you have a 4 mana deal 7 at fast speed with Senna. That's gotta be nuts. I just don't know what like the big unit is that you would play or Seismic Shard to behold, because you do have to find, like, maybe it's a Ledros. I don't know. This is just nuts. I'm definitely going to build a Senna Targon deck. Other than that, I am not looking forward to having to play around Seismic Shard this expansion. Pack your denies, boys. This expansion is getting crazy. Pack your denies and your nopifies. We're going to need them. But that is it for today's card reveals. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. Let me know your thoughts on these cards down in the comments below. And I will see you tomorrow for the final day of card reveals, assuming we're going to get Volibear. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. I'm hyped. I'm excited. I'll see you there tomorrow morning. Until then, peace.